With us today, we've got Jake Dixon out of the great state of Wisconsin, and he has got an awesome backstory that we're going to share with you here in just a second. So let's start with you, Jake. Just your quick 90-second backstory. Tell us what we need to know to get us going into this conversation. Tell us your 90-second backstory.
You got it, man. And I don't know where to look. This is tripping me up, so I'm just going to go here.
You look at both, neither. I don't know.
You got it. All right. So quick backstory. So my name's Jake, and Nick has been the most inspirational, most impactful businessman in my life. My journey started in entrepreneurship when I opened up in 2009 an indoor baseball training facility. I have a background in playing college and professional baseball, so hence the inspiration for starting that. During that time, I found Visalis, the Body by Vi 90-Day Challenge, which is how I got into Nick's world. Rose through the ranks all the way to ambassador within 6 months of slinging milkshakes and health and fitness products. And I was addicted to entrepreneurship from there. So I became a team leader within the Keller Williams ecosystem, did that for 3 years in real estate. And then I found my true calling, which is what I do now, which is coaching. And we started the Locker Room back in August of 2016. In 1 year, we grew it to just shy of 200 real estate offices that we were supporting with their agents. We've served tens of thousands of agents, hundreds and hundreds of real estate brokerages. And at the same time, we just feel like we're getting started, man. So a lot more in the works, a lot of pillars and verticals we plan on throwing up in the course of the next year or so. And it's just an absolute awesome thing that I get to do every single day. And we say at the Locker Room that real estate is a contact sport. And it's time to get your jersey dirty. So I'm ready to go.
Let's go. How many kiddos do you have?
Yeah, sure. On the personal side, I got 2 kids. They just raised over $1,000 at our recent event down in Orlando, Florida, for the local Humane Society. And Nick, I will have you know, your generous donation, along with so many others, they just handed that money over yesterday to the people that run the Humane Society, and they were about in tears. They took their picture. I think they're going to be on the interwebs everywhere, and it's really cool, man. So
yeah, well, your daughter asked me for $1, and all I had was $100. That was all I had.
I mean, I was like, dude, you want some change? Like,
I was like, find me $99, kid. Come on back. No, so great children. The fact that they're in the back of the room at your events, leading through philanthropy is a really cool thing. It's fantastic parenting. Bravo to you. And your amazing wife. And so I'll tell everyone my quick backstory so we can get into the questions here. I'm Nick Sarnicola from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Originally, I live in Miami, Florida. I also am a single dad of 2, entrepreneur, just blue collar, middle class upbringing when I was, born and raised. I found entrepreneurship at 18 through kind of the first lowest common denominator of direct sales networking. I learned overcoming objections. I learned prospecting. I learned sales. I learned sales leadership. And because of those skills, made my first million at 25. The company I was a part of went out of business. I bought the assets, created a company that Jake just referenced. We did a couple billion in sales over 15 years, 19 countries, 3.5 million customers. So it was a fun run, but lots of peaks, but just as deep valleys. The valleys were as deep as the peaks were high. And because of that, I've got a lot of contrast, a lot of wisdom of the good and the bad, and a lot to share. So 20-minute showdown, episode 17, the Locker Room. Jake, how many states are you in, by the way? How many states you guys got clients? I wanted to ask that earlier. I forgot.
You would ask me that, but last I checked, I think somewhere in 27, somewhere in that ballpark.
Nice. So guys, 27 states, a couple hundred different offices that you've touched, thousands of agents that you've coached. Yes. You're now a leader of leaders. You're coaching the coaches. So my hat's off to you, brother, in all ways, shapes, or forms. And I love part of your story, which is that you played professional sports and you played athletics at the highest level. So let's dive into that part of your story. How did playing sports at an elite level prepare you to be an elite entrepreneur, or an elite leader, or an elite business professional?
All right, I'm going to attack that a couple things. I mean, I could go on, but I'll give it 2 crunchy things. So number one, it actually was before I was playing it at an elite level, and I tell this story often, but that is this: my sophomore year of high school, believe it or not, I'm going to take you back to those glory days. Okay.
Thank you for
I'm
that.
from a small town in the middle of nowhere, Illinois, 700 people, no stoplights, no nothing there. The whole high school had 200 people, of which most everybody stayed around home and farmed and did that. Nobody went on to play athletics, and that's okay. It's just not the world I wanted for myself. And I share that because it was actually a playoff game my sophomore year, and a Midwest thunderstorm started blowing through. The umpires canceled the game, postponed it for tomorrow. That's important because our coach at the time was yelling at us players to get the equipment up and bring it inside and go into the gym. And apparently we weren't doing it as quickly as he wanted because he was getting really pissed off, yelling at us. But by the time we got into the gym, he sat us all down, and he knew my aspirations. People can't tell watching this. I'm a big dude. I'm 6'6". I was pretty good at all the sports, right? And yet at one moment, he's put his finger in my face in front of all my teammates, and he said the following verbatim: none of you will ever see none of you will ever see the inside of a college or professional stadium unless you buy a ticket. Those were his words. And so where that leads me, we've all been through some shit. You know, my story is nothing special, but what that did for me, I later learned in my adult life, it lit this internal flame inside of me that I can't extinguish. And I never will, because I never want to be that person to anyone else to try and squash their dreams. Just because he gave up on his goals doesn't mean he had the right to try and talk me out of mine. And so I played with that chip on my shoulder. I have something to prove to myself, let alone the naysayers. It's like, I dare you to tell me I can't do something. And what's most of our competitive responses when that happens? Watch me. Right. So that really set me off, to want to pursue not just a college career, but a professional career, and do something when multiple people said that it wasn't possible. So that's one thing for sure. The other thing, if I'm allowed to elaborate further, is the fundamentals, man. Like business and the overlap between sports is so basic. It's focusing and mastering the fundamentals, right? I remember watching at the All-Star break a couple of years ago at the home run derby. Pete Alonso from the New York Mets he ended up winning that particular home run derby. But in the middle of it, I'll never forget that ESPN found him underneath the stadium in the batting cage in the middle of a home run derby. And what was he doing? He was putting a ball on a tee, hitting a baseball off of a tee in a home run derby. They take hundreds and hundreds of swings every day. So what's the correlation to that in business? When I was giving kids who were 12 years old lessons and teaching them how to grip the bat and hold the baseball the right way, literally the guys that we watch on TV earning millions of dollars a year do it exactly the same. So the lesson is the game doesn't change. The game just speeds up. Instead of throwing 55 miles an hour in Little League, now they're throwing 95. But the game doesn't change. So in my sport of real estate now, I tell agents, look, what you need to do to close 12 homes a year is the exact same thing you need to do to close 112 homes a year. The game doesn't change. The game just speeds up. And so those lessons of just mastering the fundamentals, playing with a chip on your shoulder, I guess, for lack of a better term, and being a person of commitment has led us down the path of what we do today with the locker room.
I love unique quotes. The game doesn't change. It only speeds up. I mean, I got my million. I could actually hang up, and I got my $1 million moment. Thank you, actually, for coaching and teaching me something new. The game doesn't change. It only speeds up. So good. That coach, did you ever have that conversation with him? Did you ever tell him at any point? Did you ever go back and pop in and say, hey, remember when you said blank? Like, how did this transpire?
Sure did. And I'm sure my parents are watching this. We have people all over with the locker room watching this right now, eating popcorn, doing a watch party. So hi, Mom and Dad. Yes, I did. And what was interesting, of course, when I later confronted him in my younger years, when I was probably not mature enough to handle that situation, I did call him out on that, and he doesn't remember. Of course he wouldn't remember. He probably said it in a moment of just whatever frustration, fine. But the problem with Jake Dixon as a freshman? He doesn't have enough varsity experience. My mom and dad remember this same coach saying that. Well, no shit, Sherlock. The problem with Jake Dixon as a freshman is he doesn't have enough varsity experience. Yep. Okay. So yes, I did call him out on it. No, he claims he doesn't remember, but I sure do, because those words are etched into my memory for life.
Well, I'll make sure if I ever want to get you really focused on something to tell you can't do it.
That would be the quickest way to send my blood pressure up, and laser focus is telling me I can't do something.
So this is in the same lane. So I don't count this as a second question. How did the the abrupt ending to injury of your sports career affect you or impact you positively or negatively for the next phase of your life as an entrepreneur?
Yep. And that you are cheating because that's a different question. But I have a scar here. I had Tommy John surgery and re-injured it for the second time, and that's when I decided to hang up the cleats. But I'll never forget, man. It was actually July 4th, 2006, that we were out in Idaho Falls, Idaho. I knew I retore it. And after the game, I always observed that coach was the last one to get off the bus. So I stood still. All my teammates got off the bus, and I was the last one to go, knowing he was sitting up front. And I looked down and said, "Coach, can I talk to you for a second?" And he looks up at me and he says, "It's your arm, isn't it?" And I freaking broke down, Nick. I mean, like, you want to see an ugly cry from a grown man? That was it. Because in an instant, it was gone. I wasn't going to go through a second surgery. And for hours, I remember being curled up in the fetal position up against the wall outside this crappy hotel and thinking, now what? But looking back, what I gained from that is faith over fear. Like, I don't have to always understand in the moment what's happening to me. It's only later can I look back and connect the dots and say, I see now the gift that was wrapped up in that moment, you know? And so I guess, as they say, faith over fear, both being something that you cannot see. And isn't that the point? So I don't have to have it all figured out, but I knew and asked the question, how is this, whatever this is, somebody watching this, you're going through some shit right now. How is this actually going to serve you in the future? So I'm able to take something that in the moment was negative, but understand there's a greater purpose behind this. And I'm going to choose faith versus running and retreating in fear, understanding that there's going to be a time later that I look back at this and understand it actually served me. And that's where I believe I'm doing God's work today with the locker room, all because that moment when my career was over.
What a great story. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for setting the stage. How many of you guys out there that are watching this right now have an athletic background, out of curiosity? Sound off in the comments if you were a college athlete, maybe a pro athlete. I'd love to hear from you guys. And did it prepare you for what you're doing today as a successful blank? Right. So if you're in the comments right now, if you're watching the replay, you're watching this live, how did sports help pave the way for your success in sales or your success in leadership, entrepreneurship as a solopreneur? I know for me, it was absolutely critical. So all I did, and this is a very literal thing, I took everything that I was putting into sports and I just redirected it into business. And that was it. I just redirected the nonstop effort. Sports was the only thing I cared about. It's the only thing I wanted to do. Is the only thing I want to spend time on. And all of that effort, energy, focus, drive, tenacity, I just figured out how to rechannel that into getting no's, getting rejections, getting beat up in sales, and then the same thing in leadership, and away we go. So that's a good first question-ish. A good first question-ish. I think we got like 3 or 4 in there. Well, okay, back to you. Over to you. What's your first question?
So that makes me feel better, actually, because I totally stacked my questions, dude. So I couldn't figure out what I wanted to ask. So here's my first one. These are so self-serving, and yet knowing the people that are watching this right now, it's for them too. So shout out to the Locker Room Nation. So my first one is this. I want practical stuff from today. I've watched a lot of these episodes, and a lot of it's like self-reflection, life lessons. Here's what I want on my first question. Take me behind the scenes in Nick Sarnicola's world. Like, you don't just get to build the first or the fastest direct sales company to $1 billion without lining up some dominoes. So I'm curious, once you capture a vision, you've done your research, you've analyzed all the angles, what is the sequence of priorities or action steps that you take and the order of which you take them? So in other words, what is your process of growing a new business from idea to reality?
To me, it's all about who, right? So the idea is the idea, the thing is the thing, but who are you going to do that with? And once my brain gets fixated on who, I then go to the culture of that who, right? So there's who do I want them to be? I want them to look like this, sound like this, act like this. I see like the interactions of a team. I see the interactions of celebrations. I see the interactions of events, interactions of it could be life experiences with this organization, with this team that doesn't exist yet. So I think there's a cultural part. Who do I want them to be culturally? But then there's the literal, like who do I want them to be? Like who are these people? And I believe wholeheartedly, and if you build people, people will build companies. So I look for great people, and I figure out how to pour into them and how to build them, how to work with them, how to partner with them, how to run with them, how to push them, how to have them push me. So it may sound a little cliche, but I'm not as strategic in, the market analytics. I'm not as strategic. You know why? Because I know I got to go find someone who is. I'm not as strategic in the product development. I know I got to go find someone who is. So to me, it's all, I do everything first about who. Who do I want them to look like culturally? And then who, like literally who. Let me start picking a team, just like kickball. It's like, all right, first draft pick, second draft pick, third draft pick. And I'm calling people. I'm like, hey, you're my first draft pick. I'm flying to people. I'm like, look, I got something. I'm coming to sit down with you. I'm sharing the vision of here's what this looks like. Here's what this is going to do. Here's what this is going to, how this is going to operate. This is what this means 3 to 5 years from now. I saw Jared Foster log in. He was one of the first people with our current company with Catalyst Group. He was one of the first people I flew out to and sat down with. I was like, hey, you still around the Bay Area? He's like, yeah, why? We haven't talked in like 15 years. I'm coming to meet with you. And he's our number one guy. So to me, it's all about who.
So it's not as, I'm allowed to follow up. Come on.
Yeah.
So it's not as mechanical where you've got walls lined with whiteboards and you're just connecting all this stuff. You start with the who, not the how, knowing that the how will reveal itself when you build this dream team of ballers, so to speak.
Well, I think it's all going to be situational. And my current company with Catalyst Group, I said, okay, I've been involved in direct sales networking. I still am passively now for upwards of 25 years. And so where do I want to put the full-time energy and efforts on the day-to-day? And I was like, all right, let's just self-analyze. Where am I the happiest, the most productive in my purpose, and doing the best possible thing that I can do to create the biggest ripple effect? So it's being super self-aware. So I'm super self-aware that, okay, I'm great at sales leadership. I'm not great at these 5 things, but I'm great at sales leadership. I'm a sprinter. Nobody has ever accused me of like, this is the best man to maintenance the company. Like I'm founder syndrome to the finest. Like I'll figure out a way to mess this thing up if it's going well, because I'm just not here to maintenance thing. I'm here to create, that's why my company's called Catalyst Group, right? It's like, I'm here to create shit, right? Just to light the fire, to get stuff off the ground, to launch. So I know I'm a sprinter. I know I'm great at sales leadership. I learned from my past life that the industry of direct sales networking does not get a good multiple on Wall Street. Wall Street does not like that industry. So you might get like 1.5 or 2x. So I want to go lean into sales and blow out sales for things that I can get a big multiple on. 10, 15, 20, 30, 40. There's things that you can get 40x for going to sell right now. Look at fintech, look at blockchain, look at, these different industries. So, I knew that if I'm staying in my lane, I'm super self-aware. I just need to make sure that I'm doing sales leadership. I'm doing it in a modality where I'm sprinting, and I'm building teams of people that like that adapt to that enjoy that, are excited by that. And that's the who part of it that we talked about earlier. So a little bit, I think, again, it depends on the business model. But self-awareness, figure out what you're great at. Don't be doing a bunch of stuff that you're not great at. And who, for me, it's all about the team and the who.
Can I ask a 30-second follow-up, and then we can move past this one? So is that how you identify your next opportunity, is through the lens of what's the multiple, what's the
Yes.
What's the end result of if I want to sell this business? That's where you start researching the little niches like solar, for example.
Correct.
Would you say that's accurate? Okay.
There's riches and niches.
Yeah.
There is riches and niches, right? So I learned that just through leading through cause marketing, and then when you start combining niche marketing and cause marketing, a cause and a niche, then it gets really super interesting, right? The Latino movement, shifting the whole company into pouring into Italy and watching that thing go from 300,000 a month to 7 million a month in sales, right? So there's riches and niches. And that's what I'm doing right now with renewable real estate. Solar is a broad topic. Renewable real estate, that's super niche. I had found out the correlation between a real estate agent's referral and how high it converts versus everything else in solar, and said, that's the niche, nothing else. We're going to pour into that. We're going to be number one. But to answer your question, the goal is to take equity in other mid-cap companies. So find mid-cap companies. They're 100 million. They want to go to 300 million, take equity in their company, sprint, blow out their sales. We exit when they exit.
You just gave me my $1 million moment.
Hey, that's what we're here for.
We can log off here, right?
Yeah, and what works for me, by the way, it does not work for Cindy. Said, by the way, she was a huge 3-point threat in high school. She wanted us to know. So Cindy, I love you. All right, so it's what works for me does not work for everyone. You got to figure out what works for you, and then 10x, double down, triple down, quadruple down, 20x that. What is it that you're great at, and go hard at that? Okay, number 2. You actually, and you led me down this path towards the answer, I don't know, not purposely, but it came out. In our prior company, you and the leaders you worked with had the greatest culture than anyone else in our company. What is it about team building, culture building, creating an environment of joy and fun? What is it about you or culture that just resonates at such a high level for you when it comes to building teams?
Yes. So I think I found that version of me during my time working with you in Visalis. And to speak to that, I guess what I've realized is I figure, you know what? If the majority of my waking hours as an adult is going to be spent working, it's just so simple, right? I might as well spend it doing something I enjoy, like you were just talking about, and with the people I enjoy doing it with. Like, I guess it's just that basic. I remember reading one of Simon Sinek's books, and this was so liberating for me when he said, hope I don't butcher this quote, "The goal in business is not to do business with everyone who needs what you have. The goal in business is to do business with those who believe what you believe." And so that's all that came out of that.
That was start with why.
There you go. And so when we were building Visalis and our team within, and now what I do with Locker Room and different things, I'm kind of like your answer. Like, I look around and establish the who. And the greatest compliment, even off of our recent event that we just did and other interactions when we're able to meet people offline from Zooms, the number one thing they always say is, well, aside from you're a lot taller than I thought you would be, is the culture, right? How real, how authentic, how down to earth we are. And it's like, dude, we're just people. There's no celebrity status. I'm not trying to say that, but it's just, I guess in a way they're shocked because so many other people they meet or conferences they attend, they say, I'm not saying this, they say they seem untouchable or they're big leaguing you. It's like you see them on the stage and you never get to hang out with them in the lobby. And I was observing, Nick, at our recent event that you were at with us, you're a master. Like, you genuinely go up to somebody and just strike a conversation. You work the room. I was observing, studying the man doing that. And that's the stuff. You're a man of the people. Like, I'm real. I'm down at the bar. We're just having a good time talking. That meant so much to the people that are probably watching this that were at that event, because it took somebody who's like untouchable and brought them down to, oh my God, I'm having a conversation with Nick Sarnicola. How cool is this? So I always like to preserve that. No amount of money or prestige or recognition is worth jeopardizing who we are to the core. And I enable those who I surround myself with to remind me of that or call me out on that, and vice versa, if we ever start to get a little wonky pursuing things that aren't in alignment with our core values.
You know, what you've done is super difficult, because when you build culture inside of your own organization, that's much easier to do. There's much more influence, control's probably too extreme. There's much more influence over your own culture than there is of bringing companies together. So you're bringing other groups, other organizations, other companies together, and you're running events, and everybody has that same cultural fit. They're all just happy to be there. They're happy to engage. They're happy to connect. They're happy to help people. They're happy to be open and share. And I think that's one of the most extremely difficult things to do, is to throw it's an industry event. So let's call it what it is. Like, you threw an industry event, but you have a culture of the folks from that industry that all match. And, they all were just a joy to be around and love being there. I'd love to hear from you guys, by the way, in the comments. Don't be shy. What are your thoughts on culture? How do you build culture? Where do you put culture as a priority inside of your organization, your company, or your business? So let's go practical for a minute. Jake, what are 2 or 3 culture tips for anyone watching this right now? Maybe they're struggling to build it, or they need to know where to start. What's 2 or 3 culture tips?
I can only share what's worked for us. So what I will say is this: back in 2016, when I had this crazy vision of what now is the locker room, the question, I went through a series, 13 Steps to Building a Scalable Business. And the first thing is, I had to define, what is our culture? What do we want to be known for? And I lied awake, no joke, no exaggeration, for 3 nights. And the one word that continually showed up in my little brain was the word collaboration. And I said, that's it. That's it. That's what we're going to be known for. If we screw everything else up, we're going to at least make enough deposits that we can occasionally make a withdrawal from it if we nail that one thing, which is creating a culture of collaboration where nobody cares who gets the credit. We just do cool shit and build cool things together to make a significant impact. When we stop caring who gets the credit, it's amazing what you can accomplish. And that is one thing that I'm most proud of with what we are building and continue to build. And you witness some of that firsthand. And there's quotes all over social media now. It's like, the ones who are winning, or the ones who are at the top, are collaborating. Those who are at the bottom are competing. And I guess that speaks to essentially what I'm saying. So that would be one. The other thing is, I'm huge into transparent communication. There were days when I was a team leader in a former life where I woke up every day wondering, who's going to leave me today? Who's going to quit today? And I don't want to live in that state of paranoia ever again. And so what I did here with Locker Room is made that abundantly clear. You don't have to like this is not a cheerleading program. It's a coaching program. So I'm going to say things from time to time that you may not want to hear, but it's out of love. You can't question the integrity of where it's coming from. But I don't want to wake up worrying about who's cheating on me or who's leaving or whatever. It's like, open and transparent communication stems from culture. And if anybody's looking for a great book, look no further than The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. We run that play using that model if somebody's looking for a great resource to learn about this whole conversation.
Nice. 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. Great recommendation, because next thing out of my mouth is I'm going to tell everyone to read The Culture Code by Daniel Coyle. Case study on culture building. Give that a read. Okay, we got to jump. Hit me. You and I are going deep in the questions of each macro question. We're going deep, which is good for depth, but bad for time.
Exactly. I know. All right. So my second one for you is, when is a time that you hit an artificial ceiling in business, and what steps did you have to take to break through that ceiling and continue to build a scalable business? In other words, how did you overcome being stuck to get to the next level?
This is the thing that popped in my mind. So it's not actually the question that you asked, but this is the thing that popped in my mind. And it's going to be a great lesson nonetheless, even though it's not what you're asking. I'm going to tell everyone that you have to be careful about what you believe is the size of your dream. We talked about this on stage. This is actually a great follow-up. So my whole 20s, every day I saw myself speaking in front of an arena full of people. It was an arena, right? And it was clear to me that it was an arena. And I mean, every day I would visualize that. It was part of multiple visualizations, but I saw it every single day. And then one day, this would be from the beginning to the end, it would be at least 10, 11, 12 years in between. But it would have been, 12, 10, 8, 6, 4, 3, 2, 1. All of a sudden, we have an arena full of people. And I distinctly remember. So this is not a proverbial, glass ceiling. This is still the ceiling. I remember my business partners and I, as the fireworks are going off and the confetti's dropping from the sky at the Miami Heat Arena and 15,000 people going crazy. The three of us took a step backwards to the back of the stage. And we kind of had our arms around each other's shoulders. And there was this clear sense of, we have arrived. Like, we have arrived. I mean, it was so clear, the feeling. And, up until after that point, everybody had said, did you ever see this possible? Did you ever see this? Like, yeah, every freaking day. Every day for a decade, I saw this. Yes, I saw this. Of course, I saw this. It's the only thing I saw. And, guess what? The sales were the highest that month they ever were in my career in anything I've ever done. And they've never recovered since. So that is the ceiling. And the moral to this story is, I wish to God every day I would have saw a football stadium full of people in my visualization, and not a basketball stadium full of people in my visualization, because I saw a basketball stadium. I got the basketball stadium, and that ceiling has never been, I've not reached that ceiling again. So what adjustments, man, every day. Actually, okay, so I do have something logical. Can you grab purpose statement right there next to the sink on the left? So now I have a 5-year vision statement that I write. And the 5-year vision statements, thank you. This is important. On one side, it has my purpose. So purpose for me is the intersection of joy, impact, and revenue, right? So I'm in the middle of my purpose when I'm doing stuff that makes me happy, that's making a big impact, and that's also making money and causing revenue to be created, right? I'm a capitalist. I want to make money. I want people to make money. I want my business partners to make money. I want my team to make money. I want what we do to create a ripple effect of revenue. On the bottom of it actually says my purpose. My purpose is to educate, contribute to, develop, and entertain millions of people through all forms of entrepreneurship, mentorship, speaking, and writing. But on the back is a 5-year vision statement. Now, the reason why this thing looks so jacked up is this is in my shower. So you can tell like the water's in there. So now I have a vision statement that is so much bigger than anywhere that I've ever been and anything that I've ever done. And I won't read it to you for the sake of time, but I read this every single day in the shower. And the process would be, first I go through my goals, then eyes closed, music playing. I'm seeing the lifestyle that is this. I'm seeing the interactions. I'm seeing the travel. I'm seeing my children. I'm seeing all of that, right? I'm seeing everything that I want to become a part or to be a byproduct of this. Then I turn the water as cold as I can, and I read this thing out loud as I can, because I know how long that's going to take to read it. And then at the end, it's got some emojis that are connected to, I would say, like, different values. So then I'll close my eyes. I'll do my I ams, right? So I am this, I am that, I'm this, I am that. So how's that for an answer? I don't know if that was the answer you're looking for, but this is how I'm coming back, bro.
That's fire. And you said you do that every day.
Every day.
I don't care if that's the answer to my question or not. That's gold.
Yeah, every day except when I travel. But when I travel, it's in my journal as well, so I can read it on the plane and stuff like that. Yeah. I've seen the ceiling, y'all. I haven't figured out how to get past the ceiling. The strategy is I've extended my dream much bigger than the dream. The dream was fulfilled. The dream was fulfilled. We check it off. And the only mistake I made there was it wasn't a football stadium in my dreams. So
That's awesome. That's a great answer. I'll absolutely accept that.
Thank you. In the comments, how many of you guys visualize? How many of you guys have a short-term vision statement? How many of you guys have big dreams? How many of you guys have vision boards? Talk to me. How do you play when it comes to any of those things? Add your comments into the comments. All right, Jake, land the plane here. What was one of, I never say the number one because sometimes it's hard for people to rank those. So what was one of the greatest mistakes that you've ever made? I've learned to ask this question without the word failures, because some people are like, well, I never failed because, okay, great. What was one of the greatest mistakes that you've ever made that led to a chain reaction of not so good shit? And what did you learn from it, and how did you overcome that? Now, we talked about your elbow earlier, which it's different because that wasn't a mistake, right? That wasn't a conscious decision. What's a major mistake that you made that you felt, the ripple effect from, and how did that turn you into a better person, leader, man, father, husband?
Okay, so I'll use a business example, I suppose, for this one. To your point of your question. So I would say a handful of years ago, my style of coaching, when I was one-on-one coaching with somebody, I'm very into the numbers, the data, the accountability around KPIs and stuff like that. Like, sure. I can take a set of data and interpret the story that's coming from that data. That was my gift of coaching. Okay. What I didn't realize after I set out on a journey to take this tracking system that we had, it's actually led to a lot of our growth at the prior company I was with. People wanted this tracking system. How can I coach if I don't know what they're doing, right? It was all through Google Sheets, like a badass, crazy Google Sheets, thanks to Carissa. But what we realized as we were scaling to a couple hundred or so offices was this was not manageable unless I want to keep hiring people to do pivot tables and all this crazy crap. Like, we needed automation. So I set out and we hired not one, not two, but three separate software developers to build us this software that we called Core, the center of real estate, Core. And it had this, it was all a web-based platform with automations and things. And after my third different software developer and probably $250,000 in cash money out of pocket, I finally just pulled the plug. And here's the lesson to your question. I realized my style was not one that the majority of people cared about or what it created to beg and chase agents to report their numbers. Anything is information in is information out. It's just how you display it. So it was just this massive undertaking that I got so out of alignment with, like, oh my God, we're not a tracking company. There's softwares out there who do that. I don't want to chase this software that I'm going to have to invest millions upon millions of dollars in. We're a coaching and training company. So that led us down to this great reset, this identity crisis that we were going through, and said, we're a coaching and training company. We're content creators. That is what we do. Along with building an amazing culture, let's just stick to that and not feel like we need to create this software and technology when a fraction of the people actually care about it.
What you just did is you created an interesting framework for people to start to make some decisions by. I threw it up here, which is, we are not a blank company. We're a blank company, right? It's like, if you're feeling or sensing out of alignment, like, okay, make that declaration. Wait a second. We're not a tracking company. We're a coaching company, right? And let other companies be tracking companies, and we can outsource that. We can use that. Expensive mistake, 250,000 lost, taken. So money lost, joy lost, time lost. Also the bill that you had to go retrain everybody in a new system, sync the system, retrain them back in the other system. And so the number one lesson learned from that was staying true to the identity, make the main thing the main thing. Is that an accurate restatement back to you?
You said it better than I could ever say it. That is absolutely true. Yep.
I love it, man. How many of you guys have had a mistake that you've had to learn the hard way? Share it in the comments if you're willing. We'd love to hear about it. Hit me with the last one, brother. We're gonna take this thing home.
You got it, boss. All right. So this is something I'm living, so I'm going to use this opportunity because I got 3 questions, and this is my last one. What are the practical steps that you took or are taking to build your own personal brand that inspires others to follow you when it could have been easy to hide behind the business you've done, like Visalis or whatever? And why is that important?
One of the biggest mistakes I've ever made is not building a personal brand. So,
Right.
If you had asked that question to me, there's 100 of them that I can answer, but not building a personal brand was one of the greatest mistakes I've ever made. And it was silly. We had the story, we had the momentum, we had it all. And all I had to do is take that and pivot it into a personal brand. And unfortunately I didn't. I thought it wasn't worth my time. So I was like, okay, that takes time away from selling, leading, recruiting, developing. Number one. Number two is I was like, oh, I'm picking up everybody anyways. I don't need to build a personal brand. Man, did that absolutely haunt me. And now I'm like sprinting to catch up to build a personal brand. One of the quotes that Grant Cardone said just rocked my world. And I hate him for this quote, which is, and this is, you have to think about who Grant is prior to who Grant is now. He said, you can be the greatest salesman in the world and no one will know who you are. Do you remember what Grant was? What did Grant teach? What was Grant's topic? It was all sales.
So,
he prided himself on being the best salesman in the world and teaching sales and teaching closing and teaching objections. That was all he taught. And now that second half of that statement, what he says is, but you can be an average marketer and everybody will know you.
Ooh.
And he actually adds numbers to it. You could be the best salesman in the world and nobody will know who you are and maybe you're a millionaire. Or you could be an average marketer and everyone will know who you are and you'll be worth tens of millions. And it's just so painful for me because I'm like, all of the guys that built the brand, Gary V, Grant, all of them, 10 years ago, if you look at where I personally was in business, sales, revenue, speed, velocity, all of it, income, all of it, compared to where they were at 10, 12 years ago, it was completely like this. They built the brand. I didn't. I'm sorry for everybody in Alabama. That for what I'm going to say, my ex is from Alabama. My in-laws from. I know this word is not a good word, but I fucked myself. I totally was so stupid. So build the brand, bro. Build the brand. Prioritize it. So for me, I had to change the wiring of how I valued personal brand building. I saw it as wasn't worth the time. It was a distraction and also felt weird, like almost too me, I, ego-y. I'm like, I've already got enough of that. I already got enough bravado, enough ego. So more of that, it just felt weird. So it still does, right? Right now, there's a camera in my face right now as we do this. Look, there's Chris right here. Hi. and Chris will tell you, like, he'll have to push me sometimes. I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to. Okay, fine. So bro, build it because you can't exist. Real estate agents out there, you can't exist. You won't be able to exist against everyone else that's built a brand. We just did this. I did a training for my guys last week. I'm building a brand and I didn't know the answer. There's 20 of them on the screen. I said, I want everyone to tell me right now, what's the first thing you did when you heard my name? I went from either from each other, you were being recruited. I called you. What's the first thing you did? And they're like, Googled you. More people than not, I had no idea. They said, I went to YouTube. I looked you up on YouTube. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Half the people said I looked you up on YouTube. I had no idea. Googled you, looked you up on YouTube. A couple said LinkedIn. So I'm like, okay, so you're a real estate agent or you own a real estate training company or, and you think the first thing everyone's not going to do is go look up your Facebook and see what you did last week and see what you stand for and see what you put up on the video, pictures and videos. Of course they are. And to not think that is absolutely foolish and not think that you're going to lose a shit ton of business to your neighbor down the street because they are building a brand because you don't have to is naive. Rant complete. Baby boomers, because I know you got a lot of them. You have a lot of older Gen X and baby boomers. The number one fastest growing segment of all social media today, including TikTok, is 55 and up. I know that's still Gen X now and boomers. So full stop.
Wow. I know what I'm doing later today.
I know what you're going to be doing, shooting some videos. Well, hey, I appreciate you being on here today because whether you know this or not, the 20-minute showdown is a personal brand building strategy of mine. That's all it is. Somebody kept telling me for a year straight, my friend Melissa, she's like, you have to do lives. You have to do lives. I have to do lives. I'm like, I can't just do lives to do lives. It doesn't make sense to me. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to do lives. And then someone else was like, you got to do collaborations. You got to do collaborations. I'm like, I'm just going to do live collaborations. And I'm just going to create a platform that every week I've got a way to create live collaborations. We're sharing to each other's network. We're cutting up the videos. We're pushing the content back out. So there's one strategy for you. Guys, this has been a great, great, great live. The longest one we've had, but it's so worth it. Tell us the number one thing you learned today. The number one thing you learned today. Light it up in the comments. What's the key takeaway, the $1 million moment? What's the juice you got? And tell us, Jake, and your closing thoughts where everyone can find you.
Yeah, well, my closing thoughts are I just can't thank you publicly enough for what you've meant to me, my family, and I'm following you in our new venture together here, and just encourage anybody else following Nick, like him, follow him. Don't worry about me, but if you want to, you can follow us on social media. We're all over Facebook, Instagram at TLR. The Locker Room. I can't remember all the freaking handles, Nick, but look us up. TLRnation.com is our website, and you can find all those other things on there. TLRnation.com.
TLR Nation, the Locker Room, Jake Dixon. Thank you so much, guys. You can go to nickslinktree.com. nickslinktree.com. That'll give you all my social handles. It'll take you to everywhere, websites, YouTube, Nick's Tube, this tube, that tube, all the tubes, tube of toothpaste, whatever, nickslinktree.com. I hope this was useful. Share it, like it, comment, add it. Don't subtract it. Put it on your stories. And thank everybody. This episode 17 is officially over. Thank you so much, Jake Dixon.
Thank you.